There are two types of skills you can learn. The mistake most people make is focusing only on domain-specific skills, like just playing chess, instead of the meta skills behind it, which would 10 times their level and enable a whole new level of strategic thinking and pattern recognition in nearly every other domain they want to master. This is day 1 of leveling up your brain. Your brain can store knowledge in two completely different ways: procedural memory for specific techniques that only work in one context, and conceptual frameworks for underlying principles that map onto unlimited situations. When you learn something without extracting principles, you're building procedural memory that's locked to that exact domain. When you deliberately extract the deeper pattern, you're building conceptual frameworks that can activate across any domain that shares the same underlying structure. A chess grandmaster doesn't remember individual positions. They recognize patterns that appear across thousands of games, conceptual frameworks that transfer to every game. And a polymath can enter new fields and reach competence 10 times faster because they're not starting from zero, they're applying accumulated patterns. And that's why you should always focus on the meta level, not only when you want to get good at many things, but also when you want to become exceptional at one thing. The reason your brain only functions for 2 hours of productive work and then switches to 6 hours of just being physically present, but with zero concentration, is because it's stuck in a mode that accumulates stress, fatigue, and cognitive load until you're running on empty. But there's a 3-minute routine that completely resets your brain for maximum productivity and concentration. This is day 2 of leveling up your brain. Your nervous system has 2 modes: sympathetic for stress and action, and parasympathetic for recovery. Most people stay stuck in sympathetic all day, accumulating cortisol that kills prefrontal cortex function, and with that goes your concentration and performance. But there's a 3-minute reset that manually triggers parasympathetic mode, which clears your mental fatigue and stress by activating your vagus nerve. It starts with 1 minute of dynamic movement, like jumping jacks to burn off stress hormones stored in your muscles. Then 1 minute of box breathing. 4 seconds in, 4 hold, 4 out, 4 hold. This triggers the vagus nerve and forces parasympathetic activation. Finally, 1 minute of sensory grounding. Notice what you see, hear, and feel to interrupt rumination. This way you're physiologically resetting to your morning state, giving you multiple fresh starts per day. Do this 5 times per day for 7.5 hours of quality work versus 2 hours without resets. What distinguishes the elite from average people lies in their way of thinking. While normal people approach every situation and decision spontaneously, the top 1% uses mental models for everything. This is day 3 of leveling up your brain. Mental models compress complex situations into recognizable patterns, allowing you to make better decisions faster. When faced with a decision, most people try to process every variable individually, which overwhelms working memory and leads to analysis paralysis. Mental models bypass this by giving you pre-built lenses that instantly highlight what matters. One mental model is first principles thinking. Instead of reasoning by analogy, you break something down to fundamental truths and rebuild from there. Elon Musk used this when people said electric cars were impossible because batteries were too expensive. He asked, "What are batteries made of?" and realized the raw materials cost was 1/10 of the market price, meaning someone was overcharging. Another one is inversion, solving problems backward. Take your goal. Write down every single way you could definitely fail at it. Then engineer your strategy to avoid each failure mode. This finds risks you'd miss thinking forward because your brain is biased toward positive outcomes and blind to what destroys you. Most people don't want to solve their problems. They want to keep them while complaining about them because their struggles give them secondary gains like identity, attention, and excuses that they're not willing to trade for the uncertainty and accountability that come with actually changing. This is day 4 of leveling up your brain. Secondary gains are the hidden psychological benefits you get from your problems that make you unconsciously resist solving them. Your conscious mind says, "I want to change," but your subconscious runs a cost-benefit analysis and concludes that keeping the problem is safer because it provides identity, attention, or permission to avoid things you're actually afraid of. Breaking secondary gains comes down to a 4-step plan. First, you need to make them conscious because right now it's all happening under the surface. Write down what you'd lose if the problem vanished. Seeing it on paper forces you to admit what you're getting from staying stuck. I'm at the beginning, so I'm allowed to mess this up. This way you bind the excuse to taking action, and you lose your last secondary gain, giving your brain no choice but to finally change. Every impulse to do something hard gets killed within 10 seconds by your brain generating reasons why later is better. But the 5-second rule forces you to move before that sabotage completes. And once you're in motion, resistance disappears. This is day 5 of leveling up your brain. There's a neurological gap between having an impulse to do something and your brain's executive function kicking in to evaluate whether you should actually do it. In those first few seconds, the impulse exists in a pure state without resistance. But the moment your prefrontal cortex starts analyzing, Your brain begins generating rational-sounding reasons to avoid action because its primary job is keeping you safe and conserved, not helping you grow. The second you have an impulse, you count backwards 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and physically move on 1. The countdown interrupts your default thought patterns, and the backwards counting requires just enough mental focus that your brain can't simultaneously build its case against action. By the time you hit 1, you're already moving, and once you're in motion, your brain shifts from, should I do this, to, I'm doing this. How do I execute? The decision is already made through action before deliberation could sabotage it.